Here comes everybody.
Someone shared a Saturday Night Live sketch about Waffle House. Oh, it's on YouTube, and it is high art. And
there's a whole series of YouTube about incidents at Waffle Houses.
so I mentioned that. Well, this sort of is in line with that, but it's a couple breaking out in front of the Waffle House as the Waffle House provides its own entertainment in the background.
There's all kinds of characters wandering Waffle House. The manager has gotten to know me, and the story she tells me, I say, TMI, please. I don't want to know anymore. Stop coming there. So, they got people that go to the Waffle House, get their coffee, and sit outside. Believe it or not, and it's like a little bit of a sidewalk, but there's no canopy or nothing. But they go out and sit outside and drink their coffee. And there's, people come in and the waitress works the day shift at the Waffle House, night shift at the strip bar, all kinds of stuff. You don't want to know it.
Who do we have regaling us about the Waffle House?
Daughter's going to want a tattoo because all of them have tattoos. It's just an anathema to me. That and the
I mean, I like a good Waffle House story.
Got about a minute to go, folks. We're just going to give a few more for everybody to hop on. Thank you for joining us and for sharing your Waffle Houses. Can everybody hear us okay? Yeah.
Yay. Yay.
Jason, when you wear that headband, I just kind of get the sense that, God, you're a dancer. A dancer dances. What are we going to see tonight? Little tap? Little pot of beret?
No, well, I'll show you the old Fosse fan the fart hands if you want.
Yes.
I'd like to put in a request for the sequel to Saturday Night Fever, Staying Alive, where Sylvester Stallone directed and sculpted the body of John Travolta. He wore a headband like that, Jason, and I would like some of that, please.
How about the prequel that's like late Thursday afternoon? That's what we'll call it.
Gonna make that up.
All right, James, it's 7:01.
Well, all right. Thank you for joining us, y'all. I thought that a good place to start that will be a surprise to Mr. and Mrs. Young is that before we get into talking about the show that we're working on and the stuff we're gonna table work from that show, I thought it would be good for Jason to tell us who are the Rustic Mechanicals. And what I would like to do, Jason, is have you give us a little bit on the Rustic Mechanicals, throw it to Sarah a little bit so that we can hear something from her about the Rustic Mechanicals. Then I'll say something about how I hooked up with the Rustic Mechanicals. We will fast forward to Tom calling me while I was working for the Rustic Mechanicals. I will throw it to Sarah. She will talk a little bit about villains and clowns. And then, Jason, you're going to tell the story of the origin of the Macbeths. So starting with you, Jason, and throw some to Sarah on who are the Rustic Mechanicals.
The Rustic Mechanicals are West Virginia. They are West Virginia Shakespeare troupe. That's what we call ourselves. We technically are the only professional touring Shakespeare troupe in the state of West Virginia. And 12 years ago, we decided that we should form a Shakespeare troupe because at the time, West Virginia didn't have a troupe or a festival. And so there was a bunch of stuff that I felt like West Virginia audiences, and specifically West Virginia, like high school students, were not getting the opportunity to be exposed to. And we have been touring throughout the hills and hollows of Appalachia for the last 12, this is our 12th year. So the last 11 years and 8 months, basically. Sarah, what kind of shows do we do?
We do Shakespeare shows. I don't understand that question. We do a small cast Shakespeare shows that we can tour easily using Shakespeare staging conditions, thanks to Jim Warren. And because we are a smaller troupe, we usually take about 8 to 11 people on tour with us. And that makes it easier to get to those smaller schools and those rural areas who just really want live theater in their communities.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Go ahead, Jim.
With your company, Jason, in West Virginia, how did you and I meet and start working together?
An ASC expat, which is what we call people who used to work at the American Shakespeare Center. One of Jim's former actors, Bridget Esterhusen, was teaching at Davis and Elkins College. And when Jim retired from the American Shakespeare Center and took what I call his Eat, Pray, Love year, and traveled around the nation and working with, small theater companies, he came to D&E to teach. And Bridget was working with us at the time, and she said, you really should meet this guy. And then we had a lovely candlelit lunch in the cafeteria of Davis and Elkins College. That was our first meeting.
And so we've been working together for how long now, Jason?
6 years.
6 years, bunch of different shows. And while I was working with you, I got a phone call from Tom. Tom, will you briefly tell us about why you called me and you didn't know that I was in West Virginia at the time?
Absolutely. I had recently watched the American Shakespeare Festival Theater burn to the ground, and that was quite the tragedy. And I saw an opening to maybe have something beautiful come out of that. And I had worked with Jim in 1998 as a Shenandoah Shakespeare expresser. And we had talked, and he had shared with me over the years that he had a dream to build a recreation of Shakespeare's 1614 globe. And I said, hey, this might be an awesome opportunity to try to build that globe here in Stratford. Why don't you come on up and check it out? And the first time he came, we talked. Second time he came, he brought Jason and Sarah along with him. So, Jim, I kick it back to you.
Well, and the show that we're going to be working on tonight is the second show that we've created for the American Globe Center. And we are co-producing this really with the Rustic Mechanicals, that we should not talk about it just as an ASC show, but it's an ASC and Rustic Mechanical show.
AGC,
buddy.
What did I say? Did I say ASC?
Yeah, you gotta
Yeah,
work years of that.
yeah.
We have discussed why
Muscle
we
memory.
so close to the other.
Just so I could mess it up a lot. The first show that we worked on together, Jason and Sarah, was called Shakespeare's Villains and Clowns at the Globe. Sarah, will you tell us a little bit about what that show is before we get into talking about the Macbeths?
So Shakespeare's Villains and Clowns at the Globe is two-person collaboration on stage with me and Jason doing select scenes from various Shakespeare plays, and in between highlighting Shakespeare staging conditions, which will also be featured at the American Globe Center. So it acts as educational for how Shakespeare's theaters would have been utilized during that era. And it's also an advertisement for what you can expect when we finally get the American Globe Center built.
Tom, where can folks go to find a video of that show?
Very simply, you can go to AmericanGlobeCenter.org, or you can go to stageable.com and check out our backstage area on stageable.com. If you are not a Stageable member, we would love for you to become one. It's a great way to get access to behind the scenes of Villains and Clowns and other cool material that's only shared with our Globetrotters, as we call them. I'll put the link in the chat.
So, Jason, we've been working together for 6 years. We created Villains and Clowns. How did this show, The Macbeths, come about?
Out of turmoil and disappointment.
As most shows do.
We were sitting in a tavern in Norwich, Connecticut. The tavern is called the Harp and Dragon. Nice place, good food. And this was one of our, I don't know, several trips to Connecticut. And we are still very proud of Shakespeare's Villains and Clowns. There's a whole bunch of Shakespeare in it and a whole bunch of funny improv and a whole bunch of information that we think we cleverly wove together in a way that is tight and enticing and clear to the audiences. It is a lot of fun, and I guess that's a link to where you can watch the video. And we had been performing it in Pittsburgh and in Connecticut and in West Virginia and maybe some other places, but we weren't getting great turnouts. We were getting nice turnouts, but not as big as we wanted. And especially when we're trying to spread this message about the AGC, we needed to find a way to try and hopefully reach some more people. And I said to Jim, maybe it's the title. Maybe the title is a little long and it doesn't actually say what it is. And maybe if it was a more well-known title, then we could grab people's attention more readily and not have to work so hard to explain to them what it is. And at the time, Sarah and I were working with Jim to prepare a full production of Macbeth to tour for the Rusty Mechanicals. And I suggested, why don't we just do a 2-person Macbeth where we just where we examine the story through the relationship of these two characters. And that way we can work on one show that's going to tour with a full cast. And while we're doing that, we can put together this smaller 2-person avant-bard production.
He's not gonna like that.
Washington. There's a company in Washington, D.C. called Avant-Bard. Sarah, anything to add to that on before we start working on the show itself? How in that pub meeting where we talked about it, did you immediately think, oh yes, that's a good idea? Or did you think, oh my God, you effing fools, you want me to be involved in what?
No, it is an idea of, I don't want to say convenience, but it will make it easier for those schools who can't afford a full-blown production of Macbeth to come in for their students. They can get our abridged version that will fit within a class period and is still a great example of Shakespeare's staging conditions and the story of Macbeth and the language.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't think that was one of our initial goals, but I could definitely say that now that we've started working on it, like any classroom that is reading Macbeth that could spare less than 45 minutes, they would get a huge chunk of the story. They'd get blood, they'd get sword fights, and it would be a great example of how engaging Shakespeare's language can be when done live.
Tom, were you about to say something?
I was just going to ask that question. I haven't seen the script, so I was curious how much of the play do we actually get to see, and do you guys play multiple characters throughout?
Well, we're going to talk more about that in a minute.
Okay.
We're gonna work through a particular scene, and then we're gonna talk more about the whole script.
Okay.
Colin, going back, how many dang years ago was it that we worked together and that you went through my flavor of tablework?
2013, 2014, World's Wine Oyster Tour. And yeah, that was what, like 12 years ago, about. Yeah.
And those plays were
Othello, King Henry IV Part 1, and The Merry Wives of Windsor, and then an adaptation of Christmas Carol.
Yeah. Yep. So what was your first thought when you did that table work stuff for the first time with me?
Man, I loved it. And particularly that, like, it just made sense, the paraphrase, and then hearing everybody's, word for word. The instructions were really clear. I really loved doing the work, and then getting there, hearing like everybody's kind of individual like translation of what it was. You just get right into the meaning of it, it was just exciting. I loved it.
Tom, your experience doing this stuff was how long ago?
Oh my gosh, 1998. So what's that? 28 years.
And what was your first impression of that?
I fell in love with it because I was a writer and an English major in addition to being a theater major, and I loved the challenge of it. I was playing Friar Lawrence was my main role in R&J. Then I was playing Sly and Baptista in Taming of the Shrew. And I tried to actually, I think a lot of folks have done this over the years, but I tried to match verse and rhyme wherever I could to try to, do our word swapping or paraphrasing to get it, as close to the feel as I could. And it was a fun challenge, and it did really open the play up. It amazes me how many people try to go out on stage and do this work without really understanding everything that they're saying. It's staggering to me, and also don't really know how to utilize the verse. And that was a big piece of the puzzle too, Jim. I think when you learn scansion in college, it's usually not very well delivered and not very clear. But when you understand why it's written that way and where the stresses should fall, and the fact that, lines with gaps are intentional, like it's just, there's so many awesome character development things that jump out at you when you know how to take a piece of text and work it through all these different levels that you train us on.
Benjamin Reed, I see your name. Can you, do you have access to your microphone? Is there anything that you want to add to your experience working on this kind of table work?
I just miss it 100%. Sorry, I'm not on video. I'm trying to do bedtime and work time at the same time. Everybody submits the table work gave us a chance to get orientation of the poetry and get on the same page to make for that.
Benjamin is testing us by only giving us one stress of every iambic syllable. So if you can figure out what he's saying, you're doing a great job. Benjamin, your mic's cutting in and out a little bit. And we understand you're working on bedtime too, so no worries. I also like to point out that Benjamin showed up immediately after I finished our stageable plug, which I think is unfair.
Okay, so I think that's enough preamble. What I do want to say for some folks that worked with me back in the SSE days and the ASC days, one of the things that I did when I left the ASC and I started working with other companies, I immediately thought, this thing that we've been called, that I have called for 30 years, paraphrasing, might not be the best term, because paraphrasing is really not what the beginning of this table work is about. So as soon as I started working with another company, I changed it to calling it word swap, because it's about replacing words. It's not about giving the general gist. Jason, you want to talk a little bit before we get into word swapping, what the exercise is in your brain, what your task is, before we jump into your actual word swaps for this scene?
Yeah, I think the goal is ownership of the language from the actor for the character. And I think that the idea of the word swap is that it forces us to examine every single word that we say.
What are you doing with every single word?
We're finding synonyms, or in some cases, like maybe 2 words that can be a synonym. Like a lot of times for heart, sometimes we'll say love pump or blood pump, or, you know, because there are some words that are hard to replace with just another word, because organ doesn't really capture what a heart is. But we're examining every single word, looking for a synonym, and by that to say that we're looking for the heart, the center of the word, like trying to exactly what the word means in the context, in the sentence. And we don't swap every word, because like we don't necessarily have to swap pronouns. It's hard to swap and or that, you know, because so there's some words that we just, you know, we kind of let go. Sometimes it is good to swap pronouns so that you can be really clear on who you're referencing with the pronouns. But all of it is in search of ownership and done through a thorough examination of trying to find another word that you can swap with Shakespeare's word that you think gets to the heart of the meaning of Shakespeare's word.
Before I get to Tom's question, part of what a lot of companies do is they sit around and talk about the play, and they talk about the meaning of lines and whatnot. But the goal of this is to break it down to individual words. And I ask folks to keep Shakespeare's syntax. So if Shakespeare starts with a verb, then your word swap starts with a verb, that you're really swapping every single word that is not an indefinite article, not a body part, not a proper noun, but to crawl inside Shakespeare's language, not just by giving a general gist of what a line might be or what a line might mean, but getting into the details of how the sentences are constructed with the words that he gives us. Thomas.
A comment and then a question, if you don't mind. I mean, one of the things I think is just phenomenal about the style that you bring to the table, and is the reason why so many of us keep coming back to work with you over and over again, is because you give so much time and energy to this, because it is so important. You know, and I don't know if you've done this consistently throughout, but the idea that you show up with an idea of what you're doing, you get to perform the play out of the gate and do a run, right? And then you go back into this table work and you learn 10 times more than you knew when you started to do that run. And with us, you know, we not only did all this table work, we did a lot of dedicated character work. We did a full cast improv to be in the world of the play. We watched all of playing Shakespeare. Like, you know, that's why I always say when we talk to folks that the AGC, ASC, SSC experience is like getting an undergrad degree in performing Shakespeare. And it really is an incredible opportunity. And I think that's why we all love to come back and do this with you. My question was, and I'm just curious, how often would you have an actor in the word swap that swapped in a very wrong word? And how do you manage the correction process on that so that it's supportive yet educational?
Well, we might get to some of that tonight.
Oh, fun.
Now, the Youngs. Any sense, you two? I haven't counted. How many shows have we done this for? How many shows have we worked on? We might have done more together than even me and Benjamin. And Benjamin was with me at the ASC for a good number of years. But how many shows do you think? How many titles?
A dozen, maybe. Probably.
With Jim, but ever since we learned how to do it, we do it even with the show.
Yeah, I would say with Jim somewhere between 8 and 12.
And how would you two answer Tom's question about if a word swap, if you do something that that I think, oh no, I think that we got a different meaning going on here than what you just word swapped. And you two probably haven't experienced that yourselves, but I'm sure you watched me deal with other folks, right?
I think one of the cool parts about the word swap is it's collaborative in nature, because we don't like do our homework and send it to Jim. So what you're going to see happen here in a second is you're going to see the performance script, which is what Jim has and what we have. but then we make notes on it of our swap, and Jim doesn't get to see it. He just listens to it. And so in the collaboration, a lot of the times Jim will say, hey, what did you swap for this word? Or let's go back. Talk to me about this one again. And then we would talk, and sometimes he really wants to know why. What was it about your examination of that word that got you to that swap? And then sometimes he'll be like, well, that's not actually what I think that word means here. And it's very collaborative. And he never, ever, frustratingly so, well, rarely frustrating, he will never give you the answer. He is always guiding us to find the answer. And again, I think that comes back to ownership. It comes back to the idea that if Jim just tells me what it means, then I don't have the ownership of it. If I spend the time to figure out exactly how to make it mean something in my head. And the same thing happens in rehearsals, where sometimes he'll say to us, like, what were you thinking about when this moment just happened? And we'll explain to him what we were thinking about. And often he said to me, yeah, I don't know how that thought generated that out of your mouth, but keep that thought, because what came out of your mouth was really, really good. It's really about us, because we're the ones that have to do it. So it's very collaborative in him trying to guide us to the place where we own the language.
And just to put a little bit of a context, it was 1980, was it 1989, 1990? Now, it might have been 1992 was the first year that I did this. And I stole this from the late, great Murray Ross, who ran Theater Works in Colorado. I read an article, a review by Shakespeare scholar Stephen Booth, wrote an article called The Best Othello I Ever Saw. And it was a small company in Colorado Springs that did this show, that did this kind of table work. I hired Murray to direct for me, and I ended up taking what he did and twisting it some. But the idea is what Jason just said about ownership, that if you want to do a text-based production, then the actors got to know the text backwards and forwards, and they got to know what these words mean. They got to know why their character chooses these words to get this phrasing, to get this meaning, to serve this action in this part of the scene. And it's the basic building block that, frankly, when I see a ton of Shakespeare, it seems pretty obvious they haven't done this work, that the actors don't seem to know what the words mean. And especially with my old company, when I was directing, Colin was on national tours, it was a 12-month contract. So we were doing those shows for 10 to 11 months. And if you don't know what you're saying, it's going to show. And sometimes for a shorter run, you can fake it. But I think that if you want to be text-based, and lots of directors, lots of companies claim that they want to be text-based, but they're not. They know they should be, so they say it. But to me, this is the basic building block to build a great show. If you don't have ownership of the language, if the actors don't feel confident and that they're conveying this to an audience, especially when you don't use the modern staging practices of a big ass set, big lighting effects, and all the cool tricks we've invented in 400 years that are not part of Shakespeare's staging conditions. I think Shakespeare's actors were just so darn good with this text. And I don't think they did what we are about to do. But I think that they had to be, and they had the playwright there to ask, what does this mean? And anyway, so I wanted to give a little bit of where this came from. But we're going to jump into Act 2, Scene 2 of the Scottish play. I Don't Believe in Curses. It's Macbeth, and I'm not in a theater. And if any of y'all are in a theater and you hear me saying that on the machine here, and if I've committed the dastardly curse thing, then you can go outside and spin around and do the salt and all that kind of crap. So this is the scene. that that will involve Macbeth coming in with bloody daggers. And so we're going to just jump right in and do the order that we do when I'm directing a show. We will have done a read through of the whole play of Shakespeare's words. And then as we break it down into scene work, we start with this word swap. And Sarah and Jason, I once again ask you to go pretty slowly so that I can follow in my script while you're talking. And if you go slow enough, then that will allow me to stop you if I want to ask some questions about some stuff. Are you all set? Tom, can you put up the share screen so that our online audience can see the text like I can see it? And you'll see, a billion stage directions that I've put in there. I tried to get rid of the notes. Jason, how dare you on this line? Jason, can you please do Jason? I tried to eliminate those notes, but you'll see a ton of things that I put in there.
So Tom, you got to scroll a little bit for us.
You are at 1.5 there, and we're going to 2.2. He's scrolling through some of those notes. The new notes are highlighted in
Tom, you're there.
yellow.
Tom, you're there. Back up. Go back. Yeah, you're there. Go back down.
When you see a red bar, that'll be the top.
There it is, right there. There it is. That which has made them drunk.
All right, Sarah, are you ready to kick us off?
Sure.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. That which has forced them clumsy has forced me uninhibited. What has doused them.
Let's start there. You said clumsy for drunk. What else is possible there for drunk?
I also have inebriated.
Yeah, and I would probably say that what's cool about double dipping like that is that the inebriation makes them clumsy.
I felt inebriated was too vague, too broad. So I tried to narrow it a little more.
And one of the things, and we're talking about this in the first darn line, is that oftentimes Shakespeare will give us a word that has a bunch of different possible meanings. And in this exercise, it's your job to pick one, and it's my job to talk about the other things. If you read one, then I may talk about the other meanings involved. And sometimes if you've written down more than one word, go ahead and give us more than one. But yay for that. Picking up on the second line, what hath quenched them?
What has doused them has gifted me heat. Listen, silence. It was the night bird that screeched. He is at it. The sated guards, or chamberlains, because that's what I call them in an earlier scene, do scorn their assignment with wheezes.
Cool.
Who is present? Hey there.
Shit. I am scared they have roused, and it is not completed. I set their blades prepared. He, being Macbeth, could not overlook them. Had he, Duncan, not looked like my dad as he dozed, I had completed it.
I did accomplish the task. Did you not hearken a sound?
I have two more words.
Oh, sorry.
You make a noise in our
noise
production. Thank you, noise.
My partner.
I did accomplish the task. Did not you hearken a sound?
I hearkened the night bird cry, and wait. Yeah, okay, sorry. I hearkened the night bird cry and the grasshoppers scream. Did not you talk?
When?
Presently.
As I came down?
Yes.
Listen, who sleeps in the other room?
Donalbain.
This is a miserable scene.
An irrational assignment to speak a miserable scene.
There
Good.
is
Interesting choice with irrational. Any other thoughts on foolish?
Stupid.
Yeah. Nice. Keep
Also-
going, mister.
also worth noting right there is some language larceny. Sorry,
Sycophants.
sorry, sight.
Yep.
There is a single that chuckled in his slumber, and one shouted homicide. They did awake one the other. I erected and listened them, but they did speak their vespers and directed them once more to slumber.
There are a couple roomed together. There is a couple roomed together.
One shouted, Lord prosper we, and agreed the other, as they almost saw me with these executioners' palms. Hearing their horror, I could not speak, agreed. At the moment they did speak, Lord prosper we.
Examine it not so thoroughly.
But why could I not speak agreed? I had greatest requirement of prosperity, and agreed trapped in my esophagus.
These acts must not be assessed after these behaviors. So it will force us insane.
I thought I hearkened a speaker shout, slumber no additionally. Macbeth has killed slumber. The acquitted slumber, slumber that sews up the frayed armhole of concern.
Hey, noble leader, you do weaken your honorable power to assess so madly of items. Proceed to clean this foul evidence from your palm. Why did you carry these blades from the room?
Good. I'm going to
James?
stop you there. Okay. So before I start talking about some other stuff, that's lines 1 through 35. Is there anything that we didn't stop to talk about that either of you have questions about? Is there anything you're wondering, hey, I wrote this, but I was thinking something else as well, or I'm not quite sure of something?
No.
Before Sarah, anything?
No, it's pretty straightforward so far.
There's always the possibility of a word having some other implication that we could talk about. There was other than the stuff that I stopped us on, there wasn't anything that I thought, okay, we need to talk about the multiple meanings of this word or that word. Is there anything in doing this exercise thus far in this scene that gives you any meat for building character, that just in what your character says or how they say it, and what you had, the hoops you had to jump through to do the word swap? Anything strike you as Jason, you talked about the stickamithia, the language larceny on that one thing, and we'll get to some more of that when we get to Shakespeare's words. But any meat for character stuff that you found in this chunk so far?
I don't have any meaty character stuff so far in this, I don't think.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah,
Sarah,
I think there's something really interesting about the fact that Macbeth has such a freak out moment when he sees the blood upon his hands and the daggers.
Yeah, well, and we won't go into it a ton right now, but what does that say to you? What what does that mean for your character?
I mean, we established at the beginning of the play that he's a badass warrior, you know,
Unseamed him from the nave to the chops.
Yeah.
He's used to seeing blood. He's used to committing murder. He, war, battle, creating death. So why does this freak you out?
Because it's the blood of an innocent. It's the blood of a kinsman. It's the blood of his king that he really likes, actually. And so it's just a different kind of moment for him, and one that I think highlights that he has literally betrayed everything that he stood for.
Cool. Sarah stuff?
So this highlights my Lady Macbeth, my confidence and feeling of invincibility, especially with those first two lines talking about, I drank a little bit of the alcohol too, but while they became clumsy, I am now becoming braver and bolder. And then that great image of now I have fire within me. And then fast forwarding to calling him stupid for being upset for doing this great thing that's going to propel us forward and make our lives better, is part of that strength and confidence and stability that she tries to bring, that I try to bring to the moment.
Sarah was using personal pronouns there, and I should explain that when we're inside a table work and we're talking about the character, it's not that I want all the actors to be Deborah Winger going crazy on the set of Terms of Endearment, where she would only let people call her by her character's name. I don't mean to be stepping into that kind of ground, but I do think when we're talking about a character's language and thoughts, it's better to use the I than the he or she or they, because there's, again, hopefully the end result of all this is ownership. I think this inside the character. And so that's what those personal pronouns are about. So one of the reasons that I wanted us to pick this scene and why I stopped us where we did is I think that this is a case where if you were following along and you see any of my scribbles that are in the light blue stage directions, then you read with Macbeth's entrance folio placement of this stage direction, Enter Macbeth. I believe that they are both on stage in the dark and cannot see each other. That they are on stage talking to one another, and Lady Macbeth doesn't know he's got bloody daggers. And when you watch productions of this play, you'll often see Macbeth holding them behind his back, trying to hide the daggers from her. I believe that Shakespeare set this scene up by having characters come on stage with torches, and then they left one by one, leaving Macbeth in the dark at 2:00 in the afternoon on the stage of the Globe, that he is in a room that is dark black, and he sees a glowing dagger. He sees a dagger, and I think that's a supernatural effect that Shakespeare gives us inside of the language. Can't see anything, but then there's this dagger that he sees, and it points him towards where he was going. And he follows that dagger off stage, and then Lady Macbeth makes her entrance, and there's no light on stage. I think that is one of the coolest things in playing with Shakespeare's staging conditions, is trying to figure out where there are embedded stage directions inside the lines that allow you to do things that create theater of the imagination that he was trying to write into the plays when he didn't have a light board and he didn't have the ability to do other modern special effects. So watching two actors play characters in a room who can't see each other, I think until late in the scene, and that Lady Macbeth has to find those daggers in his hands. And you can see where I've got in the stage directions, as she says, you do unbend your noble strength to think so brain sickly of these things, that I think that's her moving her hands down his hands, feeling blood on his forearms, to say, go wash this filthy witness from your hand. And then she works her way down his arm and feels the daggers. She doesn't see them, she feels them. And finally says, why the hell did you bring these things down here? And I think that without milking Shakespeare's staging conditions and the darkness built into this, it is really hard to do all these lines and have them make sense. So that's a lot of bold statements that I just made about what I think is going on in this scene. Let me throw it to you first, Jason and Sarah, but I want to open it up to anybody that wants to talk about the scene thus far. As we worked on this together, when we were just creating the full-length show, what did y'all think of this whole darkness thing? Other than I'm going to try to do what Jim feels so passionate about, because he gets loud when he gets passionate.
I think I agree with everything that you said. I think at no point did anything ever feel awkward to me. And I think that one of the things that I have learned since I started working with you is when it feels awkward as an actor, it's not because I haven't wrapped my head around making it work. It's because I'm trying to pigeonhole something into it that doesn't fit with what Shakespeare wrote. And so I think had we tried to be talking to each other the whole time, that would have felt awkward. I do remember when she could, we're not there yet, but when she comes back in, spoiler alert, she takes the daggers and leaves and comes back with bloody hands. When she comes back in with the bloody hands, I asked, I said, it feels like now I can see her. Is this true? And then we sort of said, yeah, Shakespeare says the lights are on now. We just
do you remember the earthy, crunchy granola term papery thing I told you about that?
I try to forget most of those.
Gotcha. I believe that with the arrival of Macduff and that knocking, that the knocking on the door is the signal that day is coming, and that y'all are able to see each other more clearly. And I think that every time in other plays, I think the other big one for darkness is Othello. And Romeo and Juliet. I think it's clear in the lines that Romeo kills Paris and doesn't know it's Paris. That there are certain things inside the text where Shakespeare magically allows daylight to come upon us, so that it's people start talking about being able to see, and that's the signal. But Sarah, any thoughts from you about the weirdness of acting this darkness?
Other than just acting darkness and bright daylight in general as being weird, no.
Am I? Well, I know the answer to this question is yes. But I'll ask it anyway. I know I'm a geek for thinking, isn't this fun to get to act? I mean, to pretend it's dark and do this stuff, I think is a gas. And oh my God, isn't this like freeing and fun? Am I alone in that, or do you youngs feel any of that?
I'm not saying it's not, but it's more of a math problem. It's more about what is the solution to communicate to the audience that I can't see? What are the things that we do in the dark in real life to help us see where we're going, or help us navigate that hallway to the bathroom of our friend's house that we're staying the night over? Like, Like, what is it that we do that I can then take and put on the stage to help communicate that? So it's because I like math, because I'm weird like that. It's kind of fun in terms of the puzzle solution side of it.
I think that for everyone else here, that is a great microcosm of the way you and I work together, Sarah. I say, oh my God, isn't this fucking cool? And you say, yeah, it's like math, which is really fucking cool.
I don't think it's not fun. I think it's eventually quite fun. And I super duper love the theatricality of it. But there is that thing to go, oh, I'm looking at you, damn it, stop it. And you have to, like everything I'm supposed to be doing, I'm not supposed to be doing. And that's the moments where you have to really break. But like Sarah said, you figure out those little, like, I'll turn my ear as opposed to my eyes towards the sound. But I also love the theatricality because we're doing it with all the lights on. And particularly in this scene, I can't see Sarah, or I can't see Lady Macbeth because we're in darkness, but I can make eye contact with audience members and talk to them, and I can see them and they can see me. And there's just something so freeing and playful about that I really enjoy.
Before we pick back up with the word swap where we left off, is there anything from anyone else that you want to throw in that are not Jason and Sarah about any of the meaning stuff that we've gone through, or all of that darkness stuff that we just talked about? Any comments or questions or thoughts on y'all's parts?
I'm curious, Jason, especially for whatever you have put in your head as your mental state when you're coming back into this room, into the darkness, knowing what you've done, does the character's mental state ever inform your word swap choices, or vice versa?
I think it's vice versa. I think the text always informs my mental state. Because I think, like I was saying earlier about when it feels awkward as an actor, it's because I haven't figured something out. I think if I try to impose my mental state onto the text and it doesn't match, then that's when the lack of truthfulness becomes apparent. And I have a bad habit of doing that. I have a bad habit of coming up with ideas, and Jim will say things like, yeah, but that's not what that line is saying. That's not what the text says, and so one of the great things that I've learned from him is just let the text talk. So I don't make a bunch of big character decisions until after I've done this exercise. And so that way I just let the text talk to me.
And in the chunk that we've done so far, you've got lines that give you a sense of the freak out that you were talking about, right?
Yeah, I actually think that Lady Macbeth's lines are the ones that inform me of how Macbeth is behaving, because he's just he's recounting and he's talking and he's grieving, and there's a whole bunch of things there, but because she's saying things like whoa, or you do unbend yourself, or all this stuff about consider it not so deeply. I think she is the one that gives me the clue that if I'm not considering it really deeply, then it doesn't help. She can't say, consider it not so deeply. So I think that's where I don't know if it was Benjamin or Colin who was talking about, that's where the sharing of this work is really super duper important.
Well, and it's a little bit outside the scope of this particular exercise, but it's back into the collaboration and the looking at the text and making sure that our choices as theater artists match what's being said.
Yeah.
That and we talked about this a whole bunch, that if she says blah blah and you haven't motivated that particular flavor of blah blah, then we got something that's messed up. And again, you will see that in productions all the time. And the big example that I always use is you'll be in a Broadway house having paid $150 if you're lucky for a bad seat, and you'll be listening to a character talk about their hat, and they're not wearing a hat. That if Lady Macbeth is talking about a saying, you are doing this, Macbeth, or stop doing that, and you Macbeth have not motivated it, it sucks. It's not good theater. And so it starts with meaning, but then it snowballs into the action, reaction, action that you have with your scene partner, with the other character, so that it all those words make sense with what's in your brain and what's in your bodies and what's in your voices, or else we're just telling an audience we don't really care about this language very much.
We're not very good at this.
Anybody else want to say anything before we keep moving on? All right, so you worked your way down.
Benjamin put something in the comments about repetition in the chat.
You want to read it?
The word swap made me hear a couple of repetitions I might otherwise have missed. Fun to hear Sarah and Jason pick up on those across characters.
That's another great thing. What is part of the rules that we've got, y'all, guidelines for this word swap about repetition?
Well, you, Sarah, you can explain it, the language larceny thing.
Well, in general, if we say the same word within our own lines, we swap the same word. Because if Shakespeare is going to use the same word, then we should also use the same word. And then in terms of if we're sharing words or repeating words that other characters say, we go ahead and swap it ourselves. We can also meet with our scene partner ahead of time to talk about it. But whoever says it first is the one that kind of solidifies the swap. And then the next person who repeats it will pick up their word, just like we would in the dialogue of Shakespeare's words.
So when you go through the word swap, part of the trick is not just reading your own lines, but reading your scene partner's lines, because if you are picking up a word that your scene partner says, then you need to leave a blank in your word swap. You need to do it for yourself, but you also need to do a blank and be waiting to hear what they say and repeat that. And sometimes what we'll do is, okay, I picked this word because Jason said it and he used this. My word swap was this other word. And then sometimes we'll talk about, those are both great choices. Or, oh, I like that second one. Jason, go back and put Sarah's in yours. And because the whole point is, this is an exercise to help us own Shakespeare when we get back to Shakespeare's words. So if we're paying attention in our word swap to where we share words, then we are going to do that with Shakespeare's words, which is going to make them come alive when this exercise is over and we've just got Shakespeare's words.
A great example would be like the beginning of Romeo and Juliet. Do you bite your thumb at me, sir? I do bite my thumb, sir, but I do that. All that, like, so if somebody said, do you nibble your digit? Then for the rest of that word swap, it's going to be a series of nibbles and digits, because that's what we're doing is sharing and using the same words.
Also, and that's a great. I didn't hear you, Tom.
I was gonna say it's the name of the new restaurant that Jason is opening in West Virginia as well. Don't order the special.
And part of the fun there is you will remember nibbles and digits when you are talking about biting and thumb, and that will inform how you as an actor are able to play off of your fellow actors. And God, that's cool. That just makes being on stage feel alive and be about communication. And often with Shakespeare, it's about blah, 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 and it's not about real communication. All right, so Mrs. Macbeth, you worked your way down his arms and you asked him, why do you bring these daggers from this place? Give him line 36, please.
They must sprawl there, proceed, convey them and spread the dozing chamberlains with gore.
I will proceed. No, additionally, I am scared to ponder what I have performed. Peer on it once more. I hazard not, or no more.
Tiny one syllable verb. What did you use, Sarah, in go carry them?
Proceed, convey them being the blades.
And what was go?
Proceed.
And what did you use, Jason?
Proceed.
I think that again, good attention to detail, because I don't think it's an accident you, Mr. Macbeth, pick up her go. Keep going, Mrs. Macbeth.
Feeble of reason, gift me the blades. The dozing and the terminated are but as paintings. If he do...
Let's stop. Let's go back to that. What else could infirm of purpose be about?
It's infirm. I took infirm as in like infirmity, infirmary, like a wound, like a weakness.
Yeah. Yep. Good. Sickness. Yep.
Purpose is
Weakness.
A goal, an excuse, a reason. That's a stupid reason. That's dumb. Like,
yeah,
you just did it. I can't just go look on it. Like I don't understand.
You are not being purposeful, husband of mine. Your purpose is sick, is weak, is messed up. And I'm sorry, pick up again with give me the daggers.
Gift me the blades, the dozing and the terminated are but as paintings. If he, being Duncan, do leak, I'll embellish the visages of the chamberlains with the blood. For it must appear their shame or their blame.
Yeah, and how does that match what you say earlier in the play when you are talking about the plan?
We're gonna get the guards drunk so that they pass out, and then we can do whatever we want to the unguarded Duncan, and we shall then put the blame on the spongy officers, and they shall bear the guilt.
Yeah. And so your assessment of how he has accomplished the plan would be what?
A failure.
I did the most important part.
No, the most important part is making sure we don't get caught.
Oh, well, thanks to me, you've got something to get caught for. Her earlier line about what you were just talking about, where she says, "What cannot you and I perform upon the unguarded Duncan?" That actually informed my word swap up in line 30, whatever, where I say, "I am afraid to think what I have done." I swapped it to performed because of Lady Beth from earlier in the play. I think, that's what's related.
Well, and you again, as simple of a word as done is. We also have you earlier saying, if it were done when 'tis done, 'twere well it were done quickly. That the idea of doing it, the act of doing that thing, committing regicide, all of that stuff is captured with that word done in a really interesting way. Okay, so she leaves with the daggers and you hear some knocking, Mr. Beth.
You mean, and then done double? Never mind. I don't want to go down that hole. Sorry. Where is that rapping? How is with me that each sound aghast me? Will all magnificent Poseidon's sea clean this life fluid clear from my palm? No, this my palm will instead the thronging ocean's crimson, creating the jade one ruby.
Good. And I haven't said this yet, but often during this word swap, because you are going word for word and keeping the syntax, I will often say, like I'm about to say right now, that was really good with the word for word swap, What's the general gist of what you're saying? So this is the opposite. What often happens when people do Shakespeare table work, they're only talking about things in general ways. They don't get specific. But sometimes if you are specific, you may lose the forest through the trees. And so inside of that great word swap, Jason, what's the general gist of all of that poetry, that imagery about all the blood and washing and seas? What's the general gist of what you're trying to say?
It's a question that I answer myself. It's a question I ask that I answer myself. The question is there enough water in all the oceans on the planet to get all this blood off my hands? And then I say, nope, there isn't. If I were to dip my bloody hands into the oceans, it would turn them red.
Yeah. Awesome. So Mrs. Beth, you come back in and you got bloody hands.
I do. My palms are of your shade, but I reproach to don a bosom so pale. I perceive a pounding at the south door. Retreat we to our room. A bit of liquid. I have a bunch of choices for this one. I have relieves, deletes, or erases us of this task or act or performance.
So is it all of them, or do you have a preference?
For clears, I prefer erases. And then for deed, I prefer task.
What were the other options for erase, clears?
Deletes or relieves. I have relieves circle though, which makes me think that in a previous conversation, that was the one that we landed on.
Yeah, I mean, they're all appropriate. And part of what we've talked about is how simple and back to math. You, Lady Beth, your thinking is, yeah, we got all this stuff. You know what's going to help? A little bit of water is going to erase this. It's going to resolve it. It's going to clear it. Yeah, what I just saw somebody say something about deed.
Colin.
Yeah. I agree. Deed has an interesting legal connotations to the word. Sure. And not that you know anything about that working in a legal office.
Sarah, do you think
Not at all.
I find that she has a tendency to always sort of cut through his drama to an extent, be more practical. I don't know if you agree, but that's just my take. And I think it's really interesting that he's up here being like, all of the seas cannot wash this blood for me. And you're like, a little water will do it. Don't worry. We can take care of it.
It's a really good impression of my performance, Tom.
And in addition to that, Tom, part of what we're not getting here and that we don't get in our two-person show is in our two-person show, we have to pretend that we're hearing knocking. Right. In our full show, I try to get them to bang loud as hell, and that's another piece to what you're saying is that we hear some knocking. And Macbeth freaks out about it, and it's a big deal. And she's calm, cool, and collected about, yeah, well, this is happening. This is happening.
You know why? Because we women clean blood with water every month. Like, it's not a big deal, guys. We're so used to it.
And men are not.
I had forgotten you said that in our initial rehearsals, and I think that is really fucking great. Okay, keep going.
Oh, I don't know where. How simple is, I'm on line 53. How simple is it then? Your perseverance has abandoned you alone. Listen, additional pounding. Be not stranded so illy in your assessments. That's the end of me. That's all I'm done.
Question mark?
Sarah, what did you use for deed in line 50? Did you use action?
I did say act, but I prefer task.
Task. Okay, then I'll take task. To understand my task, it was finest not understand me. Rouse Duncan with
Okay,
your
try
pounding.
and Jason, we get this a bunch as we're trying to do word for word. Can you stay word for word? I like task in your line. Can you smooth that out so it makes a little bit more sense in your swap? Yeah.
To understand my task, it was finest not understand me. Rouse
and
rouse Duncan with your pounding. I wish you could.
Yeah, and if I said find another word for could.
I wish you would.
Yeah.
I wish you were capable.
Yeah.
I wish you were able.
Yep.
Jim,
Could would be one of those words that doesn't fall into the categories of you don't need to swap. That would be one I would want you to swap. What was that, Tom?
And I kind of cheated. I just took the ST off.
I just forget. And again, this is Jason and Sarah's table work. So if Sarah has a couple of words and I have a thought, that's not really Sarah's problem. That's my problem. But I would forget if when we were in scene, would you allow actors to discuss choices with other actors?
Yeah, the tricky thing about that isn't, hearing other voices with it, but sometimes it's about how can we manage the time, that we've only got a certain amount of time for each chunk. And I should say this out loud. I usually allot an hour per 100 lines to do each piece of the table work, to do the word swap, do the verse surf, and then do Shakespeare again, trying to make the most out of those things. So sometimes if our timing is tight, I would be like, nice idea, Tom, but let's not share that so we can get through this. Let's talk about that later, which is the sweet way of saying, Tom, shut the fuck up. Exactly. We need to keep going.
Well, it was Sarah's work. She suggested action, and to me, action is something that so task is something in my mind to be accomplished that has almost a positive connotation. Action is something that I acted, right? It was I took that action. So I think that's just how that rang to me. That task seems undone, action seems done. That was all I was thinking.
Well, I see task as an item on my to-do list. I have to kill Duncan. I have to frame the Chamberlains, and so that's why I like task.
Well, and what's kind of cool to me is you, Mrs. Beth, think that it's a box to check off, and Mr. Beth is like, yeah, I checked off the box. That to be able to mock that is good. And the thing that if we were talking about this in context of the production, I'd be saying, isn't it interesting that we don't use the word murder? Isn't it interesting? We don't say assassination. We don't say regicide. We come up with lots of other words around it, but don't say it as directly. And I think that is a fascinating character thing.
Well, and it's actually Macbeth in this scene who introduces deed. And so I went back because I thought, no, I swapped this earlier, and it is I swapped it as task too. It's in line 11. I've done the deed. It's not on hear a noise, and then we just kind of stayed with it.
Yeah, well, and there again, I've done the deed. I have stuck the royal pig. Okay, so next bit of table work is let's surf the verse, and part of what I believe about examining the verse text is that we need to do that on our feet. That is not something that actors should do sitting around a table. Anytime your butt is on a chair, it's academic. If you're talking about something that you're going to do on stage, your butt needs to be not on a chair. And that goes for memorizing lines too. That if we memorize lines on our butts, we do not remember them often when we get up. And so because verse is not academic, verse is the music, trying to figure out how he might have used the rhythm to help us get our actions and objectives and clarity inside the language is the piece. As we jump back into Shakespeare's words, it's an important building block. And I often will talk about where we think in Shakespeare's career he wrote a particular play, because he uses verse differently, in my opinion, in his early plays than he does from the middle, than he does at the end. And the best analogy for anybody that's into rock and roll is to be thinking about the Beatles and how each of their albums, they do something different. And if you look at Abbey Road, it is nothing like I Want to Hold Your Hand from the beginning. Same artists, same songwriters, but they change how they use the medium. That to me is Shakespeare in a nutshell. And so this play is written somewhere near the middle, maybe just after the middle. He knew what he was doing. So as Shakespeare gets later in his career, I think that he starts off early, aping Christopher Marlowe, aping the other playwrights that came before him, who were much more regular with all their verse. If you go to Christopher Marlowe, almost all his lines are regular. And Shakespeare does that in the Henry VI plays. He does that in his early comedies. By the time he's here, there's a lot of iambic pentameter, blank verse. It's 10 syllables, and it goes unstressed, stress, unstressed, stress, and it's regular. But there's a lot of stuff that's not regular. And here again, it's an art form to talk about this and to do it. There are different ways you can scan any line. And some of it's about actor and director coming together, feeling like this feels like the rhythm that is there. I always recommend, and Tom is probably, I don't think by the time I got to you, Colin, I don't think I was requiring watching those old RSC tapes, was I? That part of Tom's time with the early SSE, I would make them watch the RSC Playing Shakespeare series to listen to John Barton of the RSC and young Ian McKellen and young Patrick Stewart talking about verse. I think I think the videos are better than the book that came out of those videos, because the videos are just clearer and cleaner. And so part of what we're looking for, and let me say this out loud, I'm a huge believer that verse is important. I am not one of those directors or Shakespearean scholars who say every line is regular until it can't be. I think that there is a rhythm when you find it inside the verse, and sometimes it calls for 2 stresses in a row. Sometimes it calls for 3 stresses in a row. Whenever there is single syllables in a stretch, that seems to be great fodder for, oh my gosh, is there a trochee here? Is there a spondy? Is there a double stress? Oh my God, what if this is a triple stress? If it's a noun or a verb, it might be in an unstressed place, but if it's a short syllable noun or verb that has a long vowel, it is so counterproductive to force that square peg into the round hole of unstress. A single syllable long vowel is just begging to be stressed. That's the music that I think is there. And so, again, trying to get the actors' brains to wrap around this from the inside. They are delivering it with their mouths, using their brains, and I'm using my ears and my brain to hear it. How might we collaborate to find the music that best tells the story of a phrase, of a line, of a speech? Blah, 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 blah. So, Mrs. Beth, would you start us off? And in doing this exercise, I ask actors to go very slowly through the text and hit the rhythm harder than they will when they are doing it for the show. And so that we're clearly trying to get on the same page of what's in a stressed place, what's in an unstressed place. Ms. Young.
We're gonna have fun with this first line.
Yeah. You talk about irregularity, baby. Get ready.
That which hath made them drunk hath made me bold. What hath quenched them hath given me fire.
Good.
Heart-
So as you try to navigate those first two lines, what have we talked about 8,000 times since we've been doing the full production with the rest of Mechanicals?
The parallelism / opposite antithesis of made them drunk and made me bold. So that parallelism of the phrasing, but then the antithesis of them being the Chamberlains and me. Same thing with quenched them and given me fire.
What I will spend a lot of time doing as a director with modern American actors, I will say we tend to want to hit pronouns. Shakespeare often does not put pronouns in stressed places. However, in this thing, there is antithesis. This pronoun versus that pronoun, and playing this thing off of that thing requires, I think, for clarity's sake, hitting pronouns that might be technically in an unstressed place if you think of each line as only regular. But I think to make the best sense out of them and sense out of that parallelism, that you've got to hit this pronoun versus that pronoun. And I believe in this case, that character is saying those early phrases, knowing that they're going to play off of them the way we often do in real life, even though we're speaking lines that we don't know exactly what we're going to say, but we're setting up our second thought by the way we tell you this first thing. So thank you, Sarah. Picking back up with Hark and Peace.
Hark, peace. It was the owl that shrieked. He is about it. The surfeited grooms do mock their charge with snores.
Who's there? What? Ho.
Alack, I am afraid they have awaked, and 'tis not done. I laid their daggers ready. He could not miss them. Had he not resembled my father as he slept, I had done't. My husband.
Okay, so good. So let's hold for a second. So we're back to what Tom was talking about earlier, where the way Jason just did those 4 single syllables, he stressed each one of them. This is a character in distress. And then his wife was able to talk about things in a more smooth manner. There's some slight, not exactly regular. Let me say this out loud. I believe that trochees are not all that irregular, and starting a line with a trochee, with a stress, unstress, isn't. This character is freaking out. It's one of the most often used thing that is not just a regular I am. But here she is staying cool, calm, and collected. And then Mr. Beth, you say?
I have done the deed, didst thou not hear a noise?
I heard the owl scream and the crickets cry. Did not you speak?
When,
Now,
as I descended,
I,
hark, who
Okay.
lies
So let me go deeply geeky on y'all for this, because I think that if we go super geeky, we can go away from some of the stupid ass reasoning that we've been using as modern Shakespeare people and get to, I think, a truth that we often overlook. So what I did in creating this script is I laid it out the way most editors would lay it out, where did not you speak when, now, as I descended, I. If you add up all those syllables, it gets to a regular line. Okay, so what we learn in famous acting school is that when you see that, that's a shared line, and you need to pick up your cue because it makes one verse line together. I believe that that is potentially a castle built on sand. As true as I believe that is, it is a modern invention that we decide as an editor how we're going to place these words. What we're going to decide is a line, a verse that should go uninterrupted. In the quartos and the folio, they don't do any of this indenting. Everything is flush left. So the what actors would have gotten would not know they are speaking. If they add all of these lines up, here is one verse line. I believe the general rule for them should be the same for us, which is we always pick up our cue. Wherever there's a cue, we pick it up, unless there is a big, huge reason to have a pause. And you can justify that pause for a bunch of different ways, but I do not believe that a half line of verse followed by a full line of verse means we should have a silence after that first half line. I believe that Shakespeare's actors picked up their cues. That's what continual dialogue is about. That's what Aaron Sorkin's dialogue is about. That's what David Mamet's dialogue is about. That's what makes things exciting, especially if you're 2 o'clock in the afternoon trying to sell darkness. You're not gonna have pauses all the time. The pauses have to matter. And I do think that you can make an argument that, hey, my character has a half line of verse, and I think that is signaling a pause. You're going to convince me that there should be a pause because of what's going on, not because it's a half line. That again, I believe that they would have only gotten their lines and a couple of 3 words as their cue line. They didn't know that things laid out like this. They just picked up their cues all the damn time, except for a few instances where pauses need to matter. One of my pet peeves about modern Shakespeare is that we put so many pauses in there that we lose what is so cool about the dialogue. And I would say pick any scene from The West Wing or Sports Night by Adam Sorkin and start throwing in pauses where those actors didn't, and you're going to create ponderous BS. And to me, that's what we often do with Shakespeare. If we think that it's continual dialogue, that we speak until a rare instance where we got to pause, I think that's what creates dynamic staging, dynamic oral landscape, and it doesn't have to be laid out on the page like this for us to know we should pick up our cues. But that was lovely, you guys picking up your cues. Let's pick up with Hark, Who Lies in the Second Chamber.
Is Adam Sorkin Aaron Sorkin's cousin?
Did I say Adam?
You sure did.
Wow. Yes. Adam is his first cousin. I'm not going to make a West Virginia joke. Okay, let's keep going.
He's a better writer. He really is a better writer.
Yeah. Hark. Who lies in the second chamber?
Donalbain.
This is a sorry sight. Or
A
this is
thought.
a sorry sight.
Yeah. That again, we got this is 2 single syllables. Is it Is it a trochee? Is it an IM? Is it a spondy? And that's a case where it could go either way, and we would try it out and see what feels good. But because I think that is an embedded stage direction that you need to be looking at your hands, I have the feeling that being a trochee or a spondy is going to be better than it being an IM.
Yeah, I think I trochee it. This is a sorry sight.
Yeah.
A foolish thought to say a sorry sight.
There's one did laugh in sleep, and one cried murder, that they did wake each other. I stood and heard them, but they did say their prayers and address them again to sleep.
There are two lodged together.
One cried, God bless us, and amen the other, as they had seen me with these hangman's hands. Listening their fear, I could not say amen when they did say, God bless us.
Consider it not so deeply.
But wherefore could I not pronounce amen? I had most need of blessing, and amen stuck in my throat. Or stuck in my throat.
Yeah.
These
And chances are I would say the second one, most
Yeah.
likely.
Yeah.
These deeds must not be thought after these ways, so it will make us mad.
Methought
So Sarah, one of the things that young actors will do as they're trying to wrap their brain around this exercise is they would get to that second line of yours, and what would they say? I see you nodding your head. After. And why did you not do that?
Because that's not how we say that word.
Yeah. That we don't do the square peg in a round hole just to make it sound regular. We don't say father, sister, after. It's father, sister, mother, after. And there's nothing, again, all that irregular about starting a line with a trochee, with a stress syllable. Okay, here's what I want to do. I want to go back to the top of this scene. I want you to pull back from the exercise. So keep the rhythm, let the rhythm be there, but let's be thinking more about performance tempo. So we just did that much and we pounded out all of that stuff. Try to maintain that rhythm, but smooth it out like you will when you are acting it. Don't hit the pattern quite so hard, please.
That which hath made them drunk hath made me bold. What hath quenched them hath given me fire. Hark, peace! It was the owl that shrieked. He is about it. The surfeited grooms do mock their charge with snores.
Who's there? What ho?
Alack, I am afraid they have awaked, and 'tis not done. I laid their daggers ready, he could not miss 'em. Had he not resembled my father as he slept, I had done't.
Huh?
My husband.
I've done the deed. Didst thou not hear a noise?
I heard the owl scream and the crickets cry. Did not you speak?
When?
Now,
As I descended?
I,
Hark, who lies in the second chamber?
Donalbain,
This is a sorry sight.
a foolish thought to say a sorry sight.
There's one did laugh and sleep, and one cried murder, that they did wake each other. I stood and heard them, but they did say their prayers and address them again to sleep.
There are two lodged together.
One cried, God bless us, and amen the other, as they had seen me with these hangman's hands. Listening their fear, I could not say amen when they did say, God bless us.
Consider it not so deeply.
But wherefore could I not?
Okay, good. Let me
pronounce
stop
amen?
you. Let me stop you there. Let me jump on another soapbox real quick, because you will see some editors will give you the word murder spelled M-U-R-T-H-E-R.
Mercer.
And The reminder is spelling was not set during Shakespeare's time. That's why we have Shakespeare's name spelled a bunch of different ways, because it wasn't consistent yet at that point. And I argue that if you don't think of that TH as a sound, but pronounce the T as a sharp consonant and the H separately, you still get the sound of murder. That the T and the D are the two letters that I think are interchangeable. I don't think Shakespeare's actors ever said murder. And so if you see that in a text, that's somebody trying to pay attention to the original spelling in the folio. But I think they're missing how that word sounds out. You know, that there is no evidence that murder was the pronunciation back then. So don't let anybody tell you that you should say murder is my soapbox there. So you get the gist of what this is like, that we do the verse surfing slowly and deliberately, and then we pull back, and that becomes our basis for rehearsal. After having done all of that, I want to be able to leave us some time to get to us talking more about the construction of this play. But before we do that, any questions about verse surfing? I think the term verse surfing is pretty awesome. That's another nomenclature that I didn't start until after I left my old company, because I thought saying verse work or iambic pentameter or scansion, those are things that often make us think, ooh, that's academic. But if we think about our job as actors is to surf the verse, to me, that puts a better mental image to this work. Because again, a lot of actors will say, what you're trying to do there, Jim, in these two exercises is so academic. I don't want to do that as an artist. And I would say, I think that first violin for that concerto who is trying to play the music on their piece of paper is not going to say that same thing. They still bring their sensibility to it, but they're playing music. And so I actually think there's a little bit more give and take with how we deliver verse lines, that it's not always there's only one way to surf the verse in this. I think about it perhaps a little bit more as doing a cover of a rock song, where you might change the phrasing a little bit based on how you feel about that part of that song, if that makes sense. So is there any questions about word swap or verse surf, or comments that y'all want to make about any of that before we talk about this play?
I love those new terms that you're using. I think that they aptly describe what it is, and it kind of it's an easier access point to what it is. And I think, you know, obviously the exercise just is really meaningful to understanding what you're doing as an actor. So I think having those more accessible kind of terms is really smart.
Cool beans. Thank you. All right. So Tom asked the question. I think it was Tom that asked the question earlier. We're doing a 2-person version of Macbeth, and we're doing it through the prism of Mr. and Mrs. Beth. Do you play other characters? What other characters do you play, Sarah Young?
I also play a messenger and Macbeth.
And when does your messenger, which messenger is it? When does it come in the story?
It comes in for the Queen, my lord is dead.
You get to play a messenger that says your other character that you've been playing it ain't coming back. And I thought it was important for this show that we were creating for it to have as much usefulness for us if we are selling it as a commercial for the Globe Project, or if we're selling it in West Virginia, where a shorter show is better than the full Macbeth that we have. I thought it was important that we end with the spectacle that the play ends with, that having a fight is a better way to end the show. Now, if Sarah had been somebody else that I didn't think could do the fight as well, then maybe I wouldn't have done that. But we had talked about, what if our play ends with the end of Tomorrow and Tomorrow? If the play ends with the death of Lady Macbeth and Macbeth talking about that, and that is a choice that somebody could make if they were putting together their collection of scenes. But to me, we actually get to tell more of the full arc of the whole story by getting just a little bit of Macduff coming in, doing that fight, and Macduff delivering the lines that Malcolm does at the end, allows us to put a cap on Shakespeare's arc. And so those are the only pieces of doubling. There are another couple of characters that we will hand out lines to audience members. So audience members will get to play a messenger, really small stuff, but fun stuff. And we made that choice rather than having Sarah in a scene as Lady Macbeth become a messenger and then go back to playing Lady Macbeth. That to me didn't seem like that would be A, as clear for an audience, or B, as much fun. If you've ever done anything, and we with the Rustic Mechanicals have done some script in hand productions where we've cast audience members as certain roles, and it's just so damn fun. The trick is trying to make it short enough, small enough, understandable enough, so that if you get somebody who's a ham, they're not going to ruin the show, or if you get somebody who's a little timid, they're not going to ruin the show either. So what else, Jason and Sarah, might you share about the structure of this play, The Macbeths?
We cut everything up until the letter. We cut.
Yeah, how's the play start? Jason, start the play for us.
The play starts with Macbeth saying, "Two truths are told as happy prologues to the swelling act."
Letter. They met me in the day of success, and I have learned by the perfect's report.
And so you get to the end of the letter, and then you say a couple of lines that are not the letter. Do you remember what those lines are?
I say, Gloms thou art, and Cawdor, and shalt be what thou art promised.
This supernatural soliciting cannot be ill, cannot be good. If ill, why hath it given me earnest of success, commencing in a truth? I am Thane of Cawdor.
And fast forward to the end of that speech, Jason.
Well, I say, if chance will have me king, why chance may crown me without my stir. Come what come may, time and the hour runs through the roughest day.
Yet do I fear thy nature.
As Jason is leaving the stage, Lady Beth comes back on and is watching Jason as he leaves the stage, and you say,
"Yet do I fear thy nature. It is too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way."
So that's an example of us trying to, that's probably the biggest example of us putting stuff in different places in order to get enough of the plot of the play. That what the witches do is really encapsulated in the letter that Lady Beth reads. Why, you are laughing. Did I say Adam again? What did I say? No?
Sorry.
We
Okay.
had a long discussion at rehearsal about plot.
Oh, that's what she's laughing about.
You
Yeah.
just did what the witches do, and it just made me giggle. We basically looked at the scenes that are Macbeth and Lady Macbeth and took those and then went, okay, what information are we missing that we have to put in?
Yeah.
And then that's how we came up with that idea of splicing the speeches at the beginning.
And we find a lot of that in the monologues. And then as we got towards the end, we had to have some discussions about like, okay, Macduff is coming. We've only barely mentioned him at this point. What kind of stuff do we have to get us to Macduff and the seriousness of Macduff was from his mother's womb untimely ripped. And so we had to put some of that together. But it's all Shakespeare's words. Like we're not rewriting, adding anything. It is all a mosaic of
a collage.
yeah.
And part of the task that we knew from the beginning how wide our audience would be. That we're not creating this show just to perform for high school kids who may or may not have read the play. But we do want to perform it for them, and we want it to make sense. So we didn't want to create just an artsy-fartsy piece that you have to know Macbeth backwards and forwards to be able to follow. How do we do the plot clearly enough? How do we do as much Shakespeare as we can? How do we not write our own dialogue? And how do we get the arc of the whole play as much as we can with just two people? Does that bring up questions, comments from folks?
I was just gonna say it is convenient that Shakespeare was smart enough to do that too, to remind us later in the play of what the witches had said, so that we know what's coming back around, and it works well. The way you guys structured it is really pretty brilliant. I'm excited to see it. Are we gonna get that puppy on stageable? I hope.
At some point we should.
Sounds good.
Yeah, doing villains, and we did Villains and Clowns in Stanton at Mary Baldwin University, but the time frame that we had available to us was when Mary Baldwin's graduate program was not in session, and so as we look ahead to when might we do this as a live stream show, which is what Stageable is all about, is how do we use live stream media to be able to make ourselves accessible to folks who can't be in the room with us, not as a substitute for live performance, but hopefully building bigger community because we're able to use that medium. I think that one of the things that we've got to do to have learn function is where and when do we choose to do this one for a live stream that might take us a step further than what we're able to do with Villains and Clowns.
Very cool.
Cool.
Thank
Any
you guys
thoughts?
for doing this in front of us. I mean, it's an intimate thing, and you're out there just showing the work, and that's really wild to watch. Yeah. And I wanted to just comment quickly. You mentioned Villains and Clowns early on. The amount of acting legwork that Jason and Sarah have done for the AGC is really spectacular. And it's pick it up, throw it on the road, drive 25 hours, and change the show and do it differently. And we've asked a lot of them, and they just keep coming back, and everything they do gets better every time. So I'm very glad that the Rustic Mechanicals and the AGC are as closely partnered as we are. Thank you, guys.
Woo! Thank y'all. I don't know what we're gonna do next month yet, but we're gonna keep doing live stuff once a month and make it available online as well. So, thank y'all for being here.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for giving us all this awesome work to do. Appreciate it.
Cool. Good night, y'all.
Good night. Thank you.
Sarah's got balloons and hearts. I don't even know what's going on here. Thanks for coming, Kim. We appreciate it. Benjamin, thank you. Thanks, Dolly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Benjamin, we're gonna talk a little bit about what we just did as a tag for putting this onto a podcast eventually. Tom and Jason, what are your wrap-up thoughts? What are things that you didn't say during the group thing that you want to say for our podcast audience?
I just think that one of the reasons we are going to be a phenomenal experience for audience members to come to is because we work our asses off. This is not easy work to do well. And I so applaud you said scholarly. Scholarly should never be something that actors should be afraid of. It should be something that they embrace, so yeah.
And that's the aesthetic and the mission and the vision and the overriding tude that we've got to create. Yeah. And I've got 30 years with my old company of succeeding and failing with getting actors to buy into that, and that we've got to be able to build a team that wants to do that. And I think the thing that I learned as I got more and more experienced actors to come work for me at the Blackfriars Playhouse, I got folks that were more set in their ways about these two camps of artists and scholars. And what Ralph and I built with that company that we are trying to build with the AGC is that those two things go together. And if you can't see me on the podcast, if you can only hear my voice, I am interlacing my fingers together. That scholarship and artistry. Shakespeare didn't wake up one day and say, I'm an actor, and the next day say, I'm a poet, and the next day, I'm a playwright. He just created great shit. And we got to be able to dig into it in a way that tears down the walls between what most of us grew up between in famous actor school thinking this is what actor school is and this is what English professor stuff is. English professor stuff, to be its best, has to be thinking about performance. And for performance to be best, we've got to be thinking about scholarship. Yeah. And we got to meld those things together, I think, to create the best shows. And so it's our job to be excited about it and unapologetic. I think that's the thing that I learned over 3 decades is there were times where I left our mission to be able to say, now that we're this big, now that we've got the Blackfriars Playhouse, I'm probably supposed to let other kinds of things happen. And I let some shows go on that I thought, looking back, oh shit, that is so not us. And we're not going to go through that kind of growing pains that all of our directors and all of our actors are going to be pursuing this goal that marries performance and scholarship unapologetically, because that's what creates the best freaking art.
Because you can't, what we ask of the actors in engaging with the audience in the shared light can't happen unless you have that super solid framework built. You need to know everything you're doing down to the T, because that other stuff is what takes you out of your game and makes you have to be nimble and have to compensate. And if you don't have everything solid in your background, you can't jump right back in the way you need to. So, I mean, I don't think we should only be unapologetic. I think this should be celebrated. If you come as a director to the AGC, if you come as an actor to the AGC, it is to raise your game and become something better than you've been. I mean, it's great. I mean, you can accomplish a lot in a lot of different ways, but when you come to our playground, right, that's when you learn how to play. You play school rock with us, and it's a different game.
Part of what I've said to Jason a lot is, and I said to SSE and ASC folks a lot too, when you don't have a big fancy set that rotates behind you and you don't have lighting effects and smoke machines and all that stuff, you better know the words. And if you're going to have true interaction with the audience, then you're going to take in whatever the audience gives you, and it becomes mostly nonverbal, but it becomes improv.
Yep.
And you better have solid, this is back to what you said, Tom, you better have a solid foundation on what the story is, on how Shakespeare uses language to paint the pictures that you don't need a set behind you to do, because he didn't have a big set behind him to do it. He did it inside the language.
And
Jason?
Oh, sorry. We're going to let Jason talk because he talked a lot tonight. And I think our pod audience has probably had more than enough. Now, real quick, I just want to say, I think it's not just Shakespeare, right? The way we bring this style to everything we do, like how many fuzzy productions of Death of a Salesman or Buried Child or, whatever play it is, have we seen where it's like these people don't know what they're saying and doing throughout the entire action of the play. And I think it's very similar to, when you do opera, right? You have to learn everything. This, not just the performance style, the technique, and the words in multiple languages. You need to know everything inside and out. And they say once you study opera, it makes doing other things like musical theater easier to access. I think once you do Shakespeare in our style, every other play you do after that, you will be better doing. Every musical you do after that, you will be better because you understand the music of language. So, it's a masterclass. And I think that the fact that we invest the time and are able to turn out the level of product we're able to turn out, that's what makes us special and different. Jason, what would you like to say?
Jason, did you feel like a master giving a class today, Mr. Masterclass?
No, but I think Tom said it correctly. I think that you just taught like a 90-minute masterclass on how to access and give actors the ability to own Shakespeare's text. Matt, that's what just happened, I think.
Right. And if you can do it with someone like Jason, imagine the possibilities.
Imagine if you had a good actor.
I had one in Tom all those years ago,
bit of
and then he
experience.
decided to do other things. So
Yes, I thought marketing was going to be a far more fulfilling. But you should see me when I look at my spreadsheets. I actually change every number to a different number so that I can kind of,
Right.
and then I
make it
burst
your own number. Make it your own number. That's good. That's good. And that's what you did with the AGC budget as well, right?
Luckily, I just ducked it down for everyone, and it worked out.
I did have someone come up to me after a performance of Macbeth on the most recent, like the summer leg of the current tour.
Was he a big guy, tough guy, tear running down his cheek?
No, but they said it to both Sarah and I. We were standing next to each other after the show, and they said it is very obvious that the two of you are scholars. And I thought that was a really interesting thing to say to these people who are did a bunch of sword fighting and we're still covered with blood, and but I think they recognized the scholarship that was necessary to be able to communicate the text that clearly. And what I said to them was, well, I've had really good training. And they said, where did you go to school? And I said, oh, I didn't. I got directed by Jim Warren for 6 years.
Academy.
I went to Warren U for 6 years.
The School of Jim.
That's a good name for a school.
Not to be confused with the School for Jim. That's something else altogether. Yeah, I just think that, I feel like, this is the secret sauce, and I don't want everybody to know about it, but I'm glad we're sharing it. I have not seen a ASC show in many moons, but this is always coupled with the ability to take this work and then utilize Shakespeare's staging conditions that make it so unique. You don't need the set, you don't need the lights, you don't need the sound, because everything that's happening is so connected. And that's the beauty of it. And you can't connect unless you are this facile with the language. You have to be, and I just love it. I was having so much fun just listening to you guys come up with words, and playing, and it is play. And I think you're right, Jim. Shakespeare, I don't think Shakespeare went into any of this saying, well, now I'm going to do this or turn that. I was just reading a line that you have about the milk of human kindness, right? That's from this play. I'm not making that up.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
From that
And then
scene.
it's followed with may have lost. Oh, it is too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way. W-A-Y. But when you're talking about milk, playing with W-H-E-Y is also kind of fun. You know, so like he's just that good. And, you know, sidebar for everybody listening to the pod, I sent an email today to the Miranda Family Foundation. And I was really excited. And obviously I wanted to make it polished and I wanted to make it good. But I feel like Lin-Manuel Miranda is someone who also just has that native gift of like accidentally being amazing sometimes, you know, and his work, I hope 400 years from now, is analyzed at this level by scholar actors who want to take it and make it as awesome as it was when it first came out. So, you know, I'm hopeful he'll join us in our mission, just knowing that that's part of what we're all about is the moment, right? Creating that moment and making it accessible for others.
Well, and that's the thing is if we do this work, we are creating the building blocks for the shows to reveal their accessibility. We're not making the shows accessible. We are doing the work that allows them to be as accessible as they are.
Right.
You know,
they are natively accessible. We've thrown a call over them over the years. But
yeah,
it's all there. It's all, you know,
and some companies feel like they have to dumb shit down to make it accessible rather than do the work that allows the accessibility that's there to breathe for audiences of scholars, of high school kids who think they hate Shakespeare, and everyone in between.
There is no worse phrase in that makes chalkboard nails in my ears than it's a modern translation of Shakespeare. It's like, what is that? Or I've heard an English translation of Shakespeare. What does that mean?
That means that they take a lot of the words that are challenging and dumb them down. And are there words that Shakespeare used that are archaic? Yes. But the analysis is that that's fewer than 2% of the words.
Right.
So I'm not saying you can't change an archaic word to something that is not archaic, but I also think that if you take something that is challenging, but still a part of our modern English language, and you dumb it down to make it more quote unquote accessible, you lose some of the cool shit that he built into his wordplay. And I don't want to be overly precious, but at the same time, I want to trust the language rather than fight the language.
Agreed.
Jason, is there anything else that our podcast people need to know since they have hung on this long through the end of all this? Are there any jewels, nuggets that you need to leave them with?
Any digits and nibbles, perhaps?
Nibble the digits, baby. I will say this, and I had this thought throughout most of tonight. I really love this work, and I think it is fun, and I think it is fun to share. I think it's fun to do. I think that one of the cool parts about it is that every show every different script allows for this work to be enjoyed in a different way. When you're doing something that is dramatic and tragic like Macbeth, that word swap is much different than when you're doing Midsummer or something that has a lightness and a playfulness to it. And I think that the text and the show in the moment can sometimes a little bit reflect the word swap. So I can remember when I was playing Bottom and he has a whole section in rhyme, I tried to rhyme my word swap, you know, and I think that there's a lot of fun to be had in that type of stuff. And I think it's cool that you were saying like the Beatles, you were talking about the Beatles and how their stuff was so different. Shakespeare's work is so different. And then the work you do to analyze it can feel very different as you go through.
We didn't talk about it at all tonight, but I think that when you do the word swap over and over and over again, and you get more comfortable with it, the added layer is don't just find another word for Shakespeare's word. Try to find a word that your character would use there. You know, try to personalize it.
Yeah.
Which is what you were talking about with Bottom.
And your version of the character. So that's what that
Exactly.
I think actually in this is sort of where you and the character can come together a little bit.
Again, the fingers merging for our listener.
Here is the church, and then there's
I will say one other thing along those lines, and it's like you mentioned earlier, it's interesting that there's this dichotomy between, you know, actors who think they're more artists and actors who think they're more scholars. But let's take this back to one of our favorite topics, professional sports, right? Can you imagine a world in which a team was out there being like, well, I got the gist of the play. You know, like, what's that going to look like, right?
Well,
I got the gist of the play.
That's Lawrence Taylor. That's the rare example of people who are so great. I was just listening to somebody, a teammate of Lawrence Taylor, saying he didn't know the plays. He didn't know a lot of stuff, and sometimes, and this guy, I mean, it was again, one of his teammates said he didn't know the names of the other teams. We're playing down in New Orleans, and
They just pointed at people.
what's the name of that team? It's the Saints. Yeah, Saints. Right. So yes, it is rare. If you don't know the playbook, how can you execute the plays?
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
I think
sports
so.
analogies, rock and roll analogies. You threw in opera analogies.
Yeah.
And Jason did the thing with his fingers in the steeple. So we got that analogy as well. I believe that we have just nibbled the digits for everyone in this podcast.
My dibbles are ninjas. My ninjas are dibbles. I don't know what we're saying anymore. It's a long day, guys. We had a lot of meetings today.
Night, Jim.
Good night, Jim. Good night, Jason. Jason, if you could do a little flash dance on the way out the door, that would be great for our viewers. Come on.
I am a maniac.
That's the truth.
Yes, you are. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.